G'day guys. I'm going to have my headphones on because I can't hear anything, and I do like the sound of my own voice. My name's Robbie McCawley from Electronic Arts. I'm a director of marketing strategy. I won't bore you with my life story or my backstory. That's all on LinkedIn, but I will bore you with this just to start with. The opinions in this presentation are my own, not that you can really see that. They do not reflect the official opinions or position of Electronic Arts on any of the subjects covered. So now that's out of the way, this is a picture of me and my mate Bowie. He's a lot bigger now, and this is probably the last time that anyone listened to me, so thank you very much for coming along today. And yes, I have done that joke before. Cool, so the theme of MadFest this year is no guts, no glory, and so today I'd love to talk to you about failing fast. And what we mean by failing fast is thinking about how we're pushing innovation, taking risks, not making stupid mistakes, but learning from the things that we do. In reality, like if you're sitting at home or sitting in your office with a bunch of canned lines behind you, you're not going to learn a lot from that success. Where you really learn things and where you really drive growth from a personal point of view, but for your businesses as well, is through failure. It's the biggest opportunity that we have. The problem with us as marketers is that we're really good at sugarcoating things. Like we sugarcoat everything. And part of the problem that I've seen come up recently is that we have two jobs as marketers. One is we do marketing. We put campaigns out into the world. We try to drive growth for the businesses and for the campaigns that we're launching. The other part of marketing is marketing the marketing, right? So we market our marketing to our bosses, to internal leaders. If you're an agency, you're marketing things to horrible clients like me. And the problem there is that we're always looking for success. And so digital kind of becoming what it is over the past 20 years has given us a whole different host of metrics that we can really dive into. And one of the things that we often find ourselves doing is throwing everything on the table and sifting through our campaigns to find that one metric, that one thing that makes us look good. The danger there is that we're making everything awesome, right? Like as marketers, everything's awesome all the time. And it's having a detrimental effect on marketing as a whole. We're seeing the respect of the expertise and the product teams or the brand teams looking to marketing less and less because we're not really delivering the results at the other end. Like we're here to drive growth, not just marketing metrics. And so at EA, we've talked about failing fast a lot, and I'm going to kick you off today with a little anecdote. This is my good mate, Andrew Wilson. He's the CEO of EA, also an Australian. There's a lot of good, smart people that come from that part of the world and good rugby players for anyone who watched the rugby on the weekend. This is not a public-facing story. This is something that's internal to EA. I don't think anyone's ever told it, so please just keep it between us so I don't get in trouble. But last year, Respawn, which is one of our studios based out of LA, presented their game Apex Legends to the CEO and the executive suite. And during this presentation, they have to drive innovation every single season. So for context, for everyone playing at home, Apex is a first-person shooter, battle royale game that's free to play. Kind of like Fortnite, it plays in the same space there. And with those games, you have to innovate constantly to keep bringing players in, keep them entertained. Because it's a game that sits there, and if you don't kind of keep innovating, then people will go and play a different game. And so Respawn came to present their seasonal update to Andrew and his team, and they said they had all this crazy innovation that was really going to change the game and change how players play, which we're all really excited about. The day they went to present, the game broke, right? Like completely broken, wouldn't turn on, players couldn't play, which is hugely problematic in gaming because if you're not going to play our game, you're going to go play someone else's game, and we don't know if and when you're going to come back. So they went to Andrew, kind of put everything on the table and said, look, we've failed spectacularly, but we've identified why we failed, we've learned from that, and we've worked out how we don't do that again in the future. So Andrew stopped the meeting, he got his executive suite to stand up, and he gave the Respawn team a round of applause and said, thank you for failing fast and learning fast, which is a pretty powerful message to send to the company. Again, this is not a publicity moment, this is just something that reverberated around the halls of EA and got back to us in marketing. And so we took a look at ourselves and said, well, as marketers, we've been sugarcoating shit for years. We need to stop that, we need to learn from our mistakes, and we need to think about how we can drive growth. Cool, so the game I'm talking to you about today is a game called Grid Legends. Most of you probably haven't heard about this. It's a racing game. It's not one of our bigger titles, but it's still an important title for EA. It's actually made here in the UK by a studio called Codemasters. And the first thing we do as a marketing team when we come to launch a new new game is we ask ourselves what we're trying to solve for. And for Grid Legends, there was two things we were trying to solve for. The first one, it was we were launching in between the two juggernauts of racing. So Gran Turismo and Forza are like the premium racing titles. They look beautiful, they're really fun to play, they're very high-end, made by Sony and Xbox respectively, so they get a lot of support and have huge marketing budgets. We didn't have a huge marketing budget. The second thing is this little guy, right? So has everyone played this game before? Just show of hands. Like, yeah, a lot of people, right? It's a pretty popular game. It's also the only racing game that's appeared in the top 20 selling games for the past 10 years. And so racing has definitely kind of had a bit of a dip since like the 80s and 90s when I was young, and the games we used to play then. So Mario Kart is kind of arcade. It's on one end of the spectrum. The other two games are on the simulation side. They're very serious games about racing. And so we position Grid Legends a bit like this. So we're a motorsports game. We're racing on tracks. But we're also what we call action racing. We're not quite arcade, but we still have fun, right? There's spectacular crashes. There's jumps, there's speed boosts, all these kind of things. And there's a spectrum of different cars that you can race, right? So you can have Mack trucks versus minis, and it's a fun game, right? And so we looked at it and said, okay, if we can position things around that fun element, then the accessibility lifts, right? Because a lot of people have played Mario Kart, not a lot of people play the more serious racing games. Cool, so our strategy going to the campaign was to embrace the sensation, leading into the sensation of the game and everything that was built around it. And we had an ace card up our sleeves. So this is Shruti Gatwa, for those who don't know. When I used to talk about this work, I said, oh, you know, from Sex Education. Now I also say he's Doctor Who, which is like really fucking cool. He's also sensational, right? So everything he does, he puts a fun twist on it. He's a great actor, and he's actually in the game. So he features in the Grid Legends story campaign. So we had like some sensational marketing clout to work with. Unfortunately, he was contracted to the game, and so while he was prepared to do some marketing things, he wasn't on board to do everything. That's one of our learnings that I'll get to later. So we took a step back, working with 20-something, an agency here in London. We looked at Shuti's Instagram page, and we said, okay, he's not contractually obligated to share any of the content we make, but he is obligated to make it with us. And so we approached it in a way that, okay, his Instagram is sensational. It's really fun. It's not overly curated. He still enjoys himself, but it is still a beautiful piece of art in nearly everything he does. And so we sat down with 20-something and we tried to create something that reflected that to increase the chances of him wanting to share it, but also making sure that it fit for the social channels that we were going to push it out onto. Cool, so Man vs. Machine was the asset. It started off with Shruti giving an amazing, super serious monologue that then ended up with him dancing. And I'm not going to play it for you today. You can go watch it yourself if you feel inclined. It's on YouTube. It was a really fun piece of creative. It really resonated with people. We saw huge social sentiment come out of it. The problem is that the marketing team put a spin on it, right? So this is my good mate, Scotty from marketing. He's also, thankfully, the former Prime Minister of Australia. He's the king of spin. He puts a spin on everything. And this is the spin we put on our asset. This was the soundbite that was going around EA. So Man vs. Machine was a bold step and delivered amazing player sentiment. That's pretty good, right? Like walking around, hearing all these VPs say this. I did some great creative work. Good work, Robbie. But we took a step back and went, no, like that's sugarcoating, right? We talked about this. We just want to stop sugarcoating stuff. The studios aren't doing it, so why should we do it? Because in reality, we didn't drive growth. We didn't see a big enough impact from this part of the campaign to really consider it success. And so we took a step back and we looked at data. The way we talk about data at EA is it's the shadows of people, right? So it's really powerful for us to have everything that we can possibly measure, but it's not real people, right? It's the shadows of where people have been. It's the tracks they've left in the sand. And so we added a human element to it. So we're assessing creative. When we develop creative, it's a human part of the creation process. When we're assessing creative, we wanted to make sure we captured that humanity as well. The other thing that we were fighting against was adversities and negativity, right? So we all face this in our jobs. People don't like to be negative. That's why we sugarcoat stuff. We all want to get ahead. And so we had to reframe how we were talking about failing fast. Our leadership didn't want to talk about that. And so we put just a tiny spin on it, but I kind of let this one go because I think it works. And we talked about chasing perfection. And chasing perfection because perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence, right? And this is a quote from an NFL coach, and if there's one thing that the NFL knows about, it's getting really close to perfection. So we added an and statement. We kept the soundbite as it was because it wasn't wrong, but we added an and statement to make sure that we were capturing the entire picture. So man versus machine was a bold step and delivered amazing player sentiment, and we learnt we need higher visibility of this type of asset to drive conversation. Because we didn't, right? We didn't hit the Mario levels of excitement. We didn't hit that levels of players feeling that the game was accessible. We just didn't deliver on that. And the other thing we did was we added a bit of a framework to chasing perfection beyond the soundbite. And so we talked about visibility, relevance, and effectiveness. So did our audience see and engage with our message? No, no, not at all. Like, we've got about 400,000 organic views, I think, which is like not bad, but it's not really going to drive growth. Like, we were aiming for the millions. Relevance, did people understand and connect with our message? Fuck yeah, right? Like, social conversation went up. People loved it. We spoke to our player councils, who are gamers that we work with when we're building the game. They enjoyed it. Yes, we got some negative comments on YouTube and Instagram, but who doesn't? But it was seen as something that was relevant. It was capturing the game. It showed gameplay. It showed the serious side of Shooty's character, but also the fun side that he brings to life in the game as well. And finally, effectiveness. Did we solve a player problem or need? Now, when we started looking at this campaign, we were solving a business problem or need. We hadn't looked at the player problem or need. And so one of the things that we've started to do after this, the things that we've learned, is that we're making sure that we focus on the human first, or what we call the player first when we're thinking about our campaign. What is the problem that we're solving for our players? Yes, accessibility was part of that, but no, I'm going to give that one a cross as well. We didn't really drive effectiveness. So, did we succeed? Yeah, we succeeded because we failed fast and we had great learnings, right? So the campaign wasn't as successful as we wanted it to be, but we took away some really great learnings. We took these to the VPs and we laid everything on the table, and they were really impressed, right? They responded really well to the fact that we failed and learned from that failure to drive success in the future. So how did we put a quick bow on failing fast? Frame an approach that works for your team, your company, and for you. We had to kind of put a little spin on it to make sure it was around chasing perfection rather than failing fast. You can steal that. You can use whatever you want, whatever works for you. Learn from your mistakes. They're your biggest opportunities. Like I said, can lines aren't won by heaps of success. It's won by failing and learning. And finally, add human perspective. So make sure you understand the impact of your creative. Creativity is human, right? And so when you're assessing creative, you need to be human as well. And just to prove I'm not totally bullshit, this was from the king of marketing at Cannes Lions in an interview he did. I wasn't there, I just watched the stream. Don't waste your mistakes, because if there's anyone who's learned from his mistakes, it's Ryan Reynolds. Cool, thanks.
Thanks, guys. Do we have any questions from the room? Right, well, I'll start us off with a question. So I think that is such a refreshing and bold position to be honest, and the idea that we sugarcoat, as I run a creative services business, and yes, we market our marketing. But I don't know if anyone else felt like this in the room, but that kind of made me slightly anxious to be completely honest and open and transparent. Did you find anyone else on your team rejected this approach, rejected this idea of not sugarcoating things, or did you just force everyone into it?
Did a little bit of forcing. We were just bold and we kind of went out and did it. I think, like, generally there is still that adversity to failure and admitting mistakes within marketing, and so I think that's dangerous in the long run. Someone posted on LinkedIn the other day the original Nike CMOs, the very first CMO of Nike's list of things that he wanted to build great marketing teams. And they all still stand up today. They're things that we should all be doing. But one of the things he put down was things that kill great marketing. And on top of the list was personal ambition. And so I think, like, personal ambition is not going to work. Like, if you're trying to get ahead yourself, it's not going to deliver the best creative idea or best campaign. You need to work together and build on things. And so that's kind of the mantra we're trying to push on people as well. Push on them. Get them to come into, yeah.
Any questions? No, I think that's just oh, we got a question at the back. Give me 1 second.
Hi.
Hi.
What sort of KPIs and data do you see as signs of success, and which are more important and less important to you?
I think it depends on the objective. So like one of the things we were doing was at EA was everyone was sifting through things to try to find that one metric. It's just making sure that you set their KPIs and objective at the start based on your objectives, and that's it, right? You have a benchmark. You're not trying to find things to paint success, and if it's a failure, it's a failure. Yeah.
I'll come around the back, give me 2 seconds.
Thank you for that. That was really, refreshing. What would be your take on an agency coming to you and saying the same things that you said, as opposed to brand in-house telling their brand?
Yeah, I'd love it. Like I'm from agencies. I think that we sugarcoat things. When I was there as well, trying to show brands that were doing great stuff all the time. I think it is something we're working towards. We had a conversation with 20-something after the creative went to air, and said okay, what do you guys think? What are you guys seeing in terms of metrics? And we all agreed that it wasn't a success. And I think we work with M6 as our media agency, and we've been very real with them about the media part of this campaign to say what worked and what didn't. So let's kind of take that to the executive team when we already have a story around what we need to learn.
Hey, thank you for the chat. That was really insightful. So, quick question. So, how long does it take for your team to wait for the failure? Or if you see a failure, how long does it take for you to then iterate on a change? Or do you see that sometimes a failure can sometimes turn into a success later on down the line?